Hi, so it's time for Back in the Library. So the first book that we're going to read is called Poem in Your Pocket. It's by Margaret McNamara. Poem in Your Pocket. And because April is Poetry Month. Mr. Tiffin's class had never had an author visit before. Emmy Crane is a poet, he said. And she doesn't know it, said Robert. That rhymes. Not all poems rhyme, said Eleanor. Miss Crane is coming to visit for Poem in Your Pocket Day, said Mr. Tiffin. We're going to write poems of our own and put them in our pockets. I'm going to wear my jeans with 6 pockets that day, Eleanor whispered to Molly. I'm going to have a different poem in each one. I'm sure your poems will be perfect, Molly whispered back. Eleanor thought it would be too show-offy to agree, so she didn't say a word. But inside, she nodded. Eleanor got to work. All during March, she studied poetry. All during April, the class caught up with Eleanor. They read poetry books and learned poems by heart and wrote poems in their poetry journals. Every day there was something new to learn. Mr. Tiffin taught them about similes, and they tried them out. Robert is as tall as that really high building in the middle of town, said Robert. Math is like a knot, said Tara. One that we can untangle together, said Mr. Tiffin. A simile compares 2 different things using like and as. They worked on metaphors. A metaphor is a comparison, saying one thing is another. Recess is an ice cream cone on a hot day, said Alex, even in April. Homework is a belt that's too tight, said Jake. Do you have a metaphor, Eleanor? Asked Mr. Tiffin. I'm coming up with something amazing, said Eleanor. I'm just not ready to say anything. Eleanor is a library, said Tara, filled with silence. Class read short poems. These are called haikus, said Eleanor. Little poems can say a lot, said Charlie. They read puzzle poems. These are called acrostics, said Eleanor. They're fun to figure out, said Jeremy. Haiku by Jeremy. No more gray days with a poem in my pocket. Bright secret rainbow. An acrostic by everybody. Teacher, interested, friendly, fun, impressive, and nice. So I spelled out his name, Tiflin, with words. They read poems that look like pictures. These are called concrete poems, said Eleanor. A concrete pumpkin seed, said Kenny. And they read a whole lot of funny poems. Hey, who knew poems can make you laugh, said Jake. I don't know the name for these, said Eleanor. Phew. Concrete by Charlie. There is only one way to find out how many seeds are in a pumpkin. Count, 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 count. Funny. Mom's Complaint by Jake. We're out of apples, kids, again. Don't eat so many, please. They're costing me a lot of dough. You think they grow on trees? Maybe they do. Maybe apples grows on trees. One bright morning, Mr. Tiffin took the class outside. What do you see? He asked. Use your poet's eyes. Everyone looked around. Buds are like tiny firecrackers, said Charlie, waiting to explode into flowers. Sadness is a cracked sidewalk, said Tara. Very nice, said Mr. Tiffin. Miss Crane will be so impressed. He noticed that Eleanor was being very quiet. How about you, Eleanor? What does your poet's eyes see? Eleanor wanted Miss Crane to be impressed with her, too. I'm still thinking, she said. One Friday afternoon, Mr. Tiffin brought everyone in class a small brown bag with a surprise inside. Sneak a peek inside your bags and then write a poem about what's in there. But don't tell anyone what you're writing about, he said. We'll do our best to guess. The class took out their poetry journals and got to work. Then they read their poems out loud. Alex guessed that Jake had a pebble in his bag, and she was right. Kimmy guessed that Molly had a glass animal, and she was right. She could even tell that it was a horse. No one could guess what Eleanor had in her brown bag. Her journal page was clean and blank. This shell is too perfect to write about, she said. Try again at home tonight, said Mr. Tiffin. And remember, poetry is a messy business. On Saturday night, Eleanor tried to finish her brown bag poem. She wrote 7 drafts, and she only liked one. When she woke up in the morning, she read the poem she'd liked. This stinks, she said. On Sunday night, Eleanor wrote 6 haiku with a total of 3 metaphors and 2 similes. She smiled as she went to bed. In the morning, she looked them over. These are not poetry, she said. By Monday night, Eleanor was worried. She wrote 11 rhyming poems. The next morning, she threw them all off her desk. Today is Poem in Your Pocket Day, she said, and I don't have anything that's good enough. Eleanor's eyes stung as she got ready for school. She wore a dress with just one small pocket, with nothing inside it. The day was as gray as Eleanor's mood. The whole school was decorated for Poems in Your Pocket Day. There were pockets on the doors and pockets in those pockets. There were pockets on the lockers and poems stuffed in those. There were rolled up poems and stapled poems. There was a poem written in chalk on the sidewalk, but that one had run in the rain. All the students had poems in their pockets, all except one. Eleanor worked on her poem at recess. She worked on her poem in the girls' room. She even worked on her poem during science, but the more she worked, the harder it was to think. At the end of the day, the students gathered in the gym for the poetry assembly. Mr. Tiffin told the school that Emmy Crane was a great American poet. He led her to the stage, and she sat down in the author's chair. She looks like a queen, said Molly. She looks perfect, said Eleanor. Emmy Crane read some of her poems aloud. She told the students what it was like to be a writer and answered their questions. Do you make a lot of money? Asked Robert. Just enough, said Emmy Crane. Where do you get your ideas? Asked Charlie. From everything I think and everything I feel, said Emmy Crane. At last it was time for Mr. Tiffin's class to read their poems. Eleanor could hardly breathe as her classmates went up onto the stage and pulled their poems out of their pockets. Charlie recited his poem. Emmy Crane grinned. Robert shouted his poem. Emmy Crane winked. Tara whispered her poem and Emmy Crane nodded. Finally, it was Eleanor's turn. She looked at Mr. Tiffin. Would you rather not read your poem? He asked. Eleanor could not even speak. I wanted my poem to be perfect, she said to Mr. Tiffin, but I have nothing in my pocket, nothing at all. You don't have to go up there, Mr. Tiffin said. I can't disappoint Emmy Crane, said Eleanor. Eleanor walked slowly up onto the stage. What's she going to do? She doesn't have a poem for all her work. She looked out at all the students and all the teachers and at Emmy Crane herself. My name is Eleanor, she said in a tiny voice, and I don't have a poem in my pocket. I tried and tried, but I couldn't get it right. Come over here, Eleanor. Emmy Crane smiled, a small smile as Eleanor walked closer. No poem is perfect, she said, in a voice only Eleanor could hear. I thought of so many things, Eleanor told Emmy Crane, but they're all in my head. Tell me what you've been thinking about, Eleanor, said Emmy Crane. Eleanor closed her eyes and thought about the poems she wanted to write. I have a poem, she said, in the pocket of my mind. She remembered that poetry book she had studied at the library. It is neat and perfect there. She used her poet's eyes, as delicate as a shell and as sturdy. She thought about the treasure in her brown bag. It has mysteries hidden inside. Then she thought about her blank journal. But when I try to write it down, the words disappear. She pictured the poem on the sidewalk that morning, like chalk on the sidewalk in the rain. Then she opened her eyes. At last, Emmy Crane spoke. That's a poem itself, she said to Eleanor. Those are words from the heart, and words from the heart are where poetry begins. Eleanor stepped down from the stage. The assembly was over. Everyone clapped and cheered for Emmy Crane. Eleanor was feeling too much to cheer, so she cheered inside as loud as she could. Eleanor's poetry page. Poetry doesn't have to rhyme. Poems can come to you anytime. Follow your ideas wherever they may wind. Keep a poem in the pocket of your mind. So April is National Poetry Month, but poetry is year-round. Poem in Your Pocket is generally celebrated the third week in April. And make up pockets out of construction paper and hang them in your classroom and fill the pockets with poetry on that big day. So this is Mr. Tiffin's pointers. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story for April Poetry Month, but April also has bunnies and it has eggs in it. So we're going to also enjoy a couple online stories. So one is a dust bunny. Does that count in April? Is that really a bunny? Tell me. Is that what you were thinking I was going to talk about when I said bunny? Did you think I meant a dust bunny? Actually, this one is about the egg. This is the other goose.
Of eggs and accidents. Fried, tried, and justified.
So this egg you were thinking
Part 1. Humpty Dumpty wasn't that tall. Humpty Dumpty went to the mall. He searched all the shelves again and again until Humpty found a true bargain. Part 2. Humpty Dumpty went for a stroll. Humpty Dumpty stepped in a hole. His shoe got stuck. He was in a bind. So Humpty had to leave that shoe behind.
Lost his shoe.
Part 3. Humpty Dumpty had a big shoe. Humpty Dumpty used to have two. He clopped in a circle again and again, but his shoes would never be together again. Epilogue. 3 days later, all the park squirrels and all the store's mice turned Humpty's shoe into something not nice.
Wonder what it was.
The park of Jacks, Jills, and Peter Pumpkin Pickle Peppers. Jack and Jill and Bill. Jack and Jill and a pickle named Bill strolled atop a mountain. Jack bent down to pick some dill, and the pickle jumped in the fountain. Jack be nimble. Jack be nimble, the name did stick. Over the candle, over the wick. Jack be famous for this trick. The Splats. Jack Splat paints abstract. His wife paints country scenes. Together they fill the canvas up and live the life serene. Peter Pumpkin Pickle Pepper. Peter Pumpkin Pickle Pepper played the pipe, no clarinetter. Played in storms, any weather. Played because it made him better. Simple Simon. Simple Simon was good at rhyming, and not a whole lot else. He went to the fair, for that is where he went to fetch his pie. But up in his head, his thoughts instead began to churn and fly. So just as before, he came back to his door, forgetting what it was he went for. That's Jack Horner, over in the corner. He doesn't get a poem. Of lost sheep and little lambs. Little boy blue, come blow your tuba. Little boy blue, come blow your tuba. The sheep are in Venice and the cows in Aruba. But where is the boy in charge of them all? He's chasing chickens in Nepal. Time to worry? Not at all. Here's his number. Give him a call. Little asleep Bo Peep. Little Bo Peep did fail to keep her little lambs beside her. She went to sleep while counting sheep, and the lambs went far and wider. Some climbed trees, some chased bees, and one even flew on a glider. Back they crept while Bo still slept, and hatched a plan to hide there. When she woke, no lamb spoke. In fact, they all got quieter. She searched and called and almost bawled. Then they all jumped out and surprised her. Mary had a little band. Mary had a singing lamb whose voice was widely known. Everywhere the lamb would sing, he never sang alone. Mary played a guitar jam with her little lamb. And so they played throughout the years and all throughout the land. Blah, blah, black sheep. Ba, ba, black sheep. Have you any wool? Let me see, he said after a lull. This is for the master. This is for the dame. This is for someone who lives down the lane. So, no.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that one. And then we have another. This is the cat named Haiku.
Dust bunny, dust bunny. Noun. 1. A small ball of dust or fluff. 2. Haiku's new best friend. Time for a cat nap. My favorite place to sleep. Underneath Mark's bed. Look at this mess. Makes my litter box look clean. What's that over there? A kingdom of dust. I can't believe my cat eyes. It's magnificent. Whoops, I've been spotted. Here comes the welcome wagon. Cute little dust bunny. My nose starts twitching. Allergies start to kick up. Hold back sneeze. Achoo! Now that's better. So long, my fuzzy buddy. Hello, pleasant dreams. Who's waking me up? Eek! An army of bunnies. They sure multiply. I have had enough. No more Mr. Nice Kitty. Catzilla attacks. Yikes! Time to retreat. Dust bunny behind the wheel? Who taught him to drive? Bookshelf, here I come. Haiku jumps for higher ground. Kaboom! A car crash. Nah, nah, can't catch me. You'll never outsmart Haiku. You live in my house. Oops, I mean Mark's house. Not the spray bottle again. Mark, I can explain. Oh no, here he comes. Need to find a place to hide. How about Mark's bed? Now, wait a minute. I can't put my paw on it. Things look different. Dust is everywhere. I destroyed the bunny's home. Poor little fellow. I should know better. How could I be so careless? Reckless kitty cat. I want to help him. Haiku wants to make amends. Let's gather some dust. Working together. Anything is possible. A kingdom rebuilt. Exploring new worlds. Discovering a new friend. The life of a cat.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed those stories. We read a story of a poem in your pocket for Poetry Month, and then we had two stories. One about a bunny, but it was a dust bunny. Is that a really April bunny story? And then we had one about an egg. Humpty Dumpty is an egg, but is that a spring story either? But it was fun. So hope you enjoyed those stories. This is Bonnie Baldiff wishing you a happy and healthy day. Goodbye.